Daniel stepped out of the hotel elevator with his tie in his pocket and kissed me before I could ask why he hadn't answered his phone for 4 hours. "The conference ran late," he said. His mother came out of the lounge behind him, carrying a half-finished martini as if the glass belonged to her. "Claire, please don't interrogate him. Some of us still admire a man who works." Then Vanessa hurried through the foyer behind them, fastening one earring. Daniel's ex stopped when she saw me. Her hand dropped from her ear. Nobody spoke for one long second. Daniel reached into his jacket. An orange valet ticket fluttered to the marble floor. Vanessa bent to pick it up, and a folded hotel bill slid from her open purse. I got to both first. The ticket was stamped 9:43 p.m. The folio's parking charge was stamped 9:45. Same claim number, 4172. I carried them to the concierge. "One question," I said. "Can the same valet claim number belong to 2 different cars?" The concierge glanced at Daniel approaching behind me. "No, ma'am. Each claim number is unique. If it appears on a room folio, that room authorized the parking charge. Daniel's car had been billed to Vanessa's hotel room. What I didn't understand yet was why his mother looked more frightened than he did." "Give me that," Daniel said. He took the valet ticket from my hand. Vanessa retrieved the folio, folding it with careful, trembling precision. "It's a clerical error," Daniel said. Elaine gave a brittle laugh. "Obviously." The concierge lowered his gaze to his computer. His expression had gone professionally blank. I looked at Vanessa. She wore a black dress under a tan coat. Not conference clothes, though I supposed a person could attend a branding seminar dressed for expensive drinks. Her lipstick had worn away in the center. One side of her hair was flattened. "Were you at the conference?" I asked. Vanessa looked at Daniel. That was her answer. Daniel put his hand on my elbow. "Let's not do this here." "Do what?" "Turn a coincidence into something ugly." Elaine set her martini on the concierge desk. "You drove all the way downtown at this hour just to pick a fight?" "You asked me to pick you up." Her mouth tightened. At 6 that evening, Daniel had texted that the final session was running over and Elaine's car was still at the dealership. Could I please come at 9:30 and drive them home? He had added a red heart and "need my favorite person." Now his own car was waiting downstairs. I took out my phone. Daniel's hand moved. "Claire." I photographed the 2 receipts before Vanessa pulled the folio against her chest. The picture caught both numbers and both timestamps, though Daniel's fingers covered one corner of the valet company logo. "Delete that," Vanessa said. Her voice surprised me. Not ashamed, offended. "Why?" "That has my room number on it." "Then I guess we all know you had a room." Daniel stepped between us. He was good at placing his body in a space and making it seem like reassurance instead of control. It was one of the things I had loved about him. At crowded parties, his palm would settle between my shoulder blades. On sidewalks, he always took the street side. When my studio refrigerator failed 2 days before a wedding, he stayed awake with me until 3 in the morning, moving $1,200 worth of flowers into borrowed coolers. He could make being managed feel like being protected. "Vanessa had client meetings here," he said. "My car was charged to her room because the conference garage filled up. We were going to straighten it out." "Why was your car here overnight?" "It wasn't. The bill says overnight parking." Elaine sighed. "Hotel bills say all sorts of things. Last month I was charged for macadamia nuts and I'm allergic." "You ate the macadamia nuts," Daniel said automatically. 3. To confirm what they were. Under any other circumstances, I would have laughed. Elaine almost smiled, pleased with herself, and I saw the old family machinery reach for me. Daniel smoothing, Elaine performing, me letting the ridiculous thing become the subject because it was easier than insisting on the painful one. I didn't laugh. Vanessa looked toward the revolving doors. "Go," Daniel told her quietly. She went. He said it so naturally that something inside me became very still. Elaine retrieved her martini and drained what remained. "Well, that was graceful." I watched Vanessa pass the valet stand without stopping and disappear into a waiting sedan. If Daniel's car was downstairs, she had arrived some other way, or she had planned to leave without him. There were too many possible explanations, and all of them made me feel stupid for trying to arrange them into one that wouldn't hurt. Daniel held out his hand. Keys. For a moment, I thought he wanted mine. Then I remembered I was holding the green glass fob attached to his spare car key. He had handed it to me 2 weeks earlier because I was taking his car for an oil change while he met a client. The glass was pale green, cloudy at the center, wrapped in thin silver wire. I had made matching fobs after our first weekend on the Maryland coast. We'd found the pieces near an old greenhouse restaurant where Daniel proposed that someday we should have a place with tall windows and a green door. At the time, someday had sounded romantic instead of evasive. I closed my fingers around the key. You told me you took a rideshare this morning. I did. Mom needed me to help with the easels. Then how did your car get here? Vanessa picked it up from the apartment. Elaine's face changed, only slightly, a tightening around her eyes, gone almost before I saw it. Vanessa has a key to my building? I asked. No, of course not. Then how did she get your car? Daniel hesitated. Mom let her in. Elaine set the empty glass back on the desk with too much care. Daniel asked me to. The concierge became extremely interested in a drawer. I looked from one to the other. You went into my home and gave his ex access to his car? Our home, Daniel said. He lives there, Elaine added. You can't keep calling it yours every time you're upset. I had bought the building 6 years before I met Daniel. It was 3 stories of old brick, stubborn plumbing, and windows that rattled whenever a delivery truck hit the pothole outside. I lived in the top floor apartment. The ground floor held Mercer Floral Studio, which sounded grander than it was. A workroom, a small glass-walled event space, and an office barely wide enough for my desk. Daniel had moved in 2 years ago with 4 suitcases, a standing desk, and a framed certificate from a leadership retreat. We had never pretended the building belonged to him, until apparently they had with each other. I'm going home, I said. Daniel reached for the keys again. I'll drive. In the car that wasn't here overnight? Claire. You should take your mother. Elaine lifted her chin. I don't need to be taken anywhere. Her car was 20 miles away with its transmission removed, but dignity had always been more important to Elaine than transportation. I placed Daniel's key on the concierge desk. The green fob made a small, bright sound against the stone. He caught my wrist before I could turn. Not hard. Daniel never did anything hard enough to make the telling simple. Please, he said. You're exhausted. Let me explain at home. His thumb rested over my pulse. I looked down at his hand and wondered if Vanessa had watched him remove his ring when he checked into the room. Except we weren't married yet. The only ring involved was mine. I pulled my wrist free. Outside, cold rain had polished the street black. I opened a rideshare app and watched the price jump twice while Daniel stood under the hotel awning calling my name. Elaine called it once. She sounded angry, not worried. At home, the apartment looked offensively normal. Daniel's running shoes were under the bench. His mug sat upside down beside the sink. On the refrigerator, Elaine's retirement dinner checklist was held up by a magnet shaped like a lobster. I took off my engagement ring and put it in the blue ceramic dish beside the bed. Then I moved it to the kitchen junk drawer because leaving it in its usual place felt like a message I wasn't ready to send. Daniel arrived 43 minutes later. I knew the exact time because I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the photograph on my phone. 9:43, 9:45, claim 4172. His key turned in the lock. The green glass fob tapped twice against the door. Claire? I didn't answer. He came into the kitchen with rain on his shoulders and set a paper bag on the table. I brought the lemon cookies you like. The bag was from the hotel cafe. I looked at it until he moved it away. Okay, he said. Bad instinct. Did you sleep with her? No. He answered before I had finished the question. I enlarged the photo. Did you spend the night in her room? No. Was your car there overnight? It was parked there overnight. I wasn't. Where were you? At the conference. Conferences don't run all night. This one had networking events. And your mother attended those? He took off his jacket. Mom came for dinner. With Vanessa? With me. Vanessa joined us later because she's considering hiring my firm. Daniel's consulting firm had one steady client, a local dental group whose invoices I prepared every month because Daniel said software made him feel creatively imprisoned. He was intelligent, charming, and capable of selling a room full of executives on ideas he had formed while parking. He was also 3/4 behind on the amount we had agreed he would contribute to household expenses. I had called that a rough patch. Maybe Elaine called it property strategy. Why did your mother let Vanessa into my building? To get my keys. Why were your keys here if you took a rideshare? I left the car because I planned to drink at dinner. Then why not take the car this morning? His jaw shifted. Because plans changed. Before or after you lied to me? I didn't lie. You said you needed a ride home. Mom needed a ride. I assumed we'd all come back together. Why? He rubbed both hands over his face. Because you're my fiancé, Claire. Because normal couples pick each other up without conducting a criminal investigation. There it was, the small turn he was so good at. I had asked the question incorrectly. I had arrived at the wrong time. I had noticed too much in an unattractive tone. I slid my phone across the table. Explain the matching number. He didn't look at it. I told you, the hotel valet attached my car to her room. Why? She was the registered guest. Why was she responsible for your car? Because I was at the conference, which was in the same hotel. He stood. I'm not doing this in circles. You're not doing it in a straight line either. That landed. His eyes sharpened, and for a second I saw anger with none of the concern wrapped around it. Then the apartment buzzer sounded. Daniel looked toward the hall. It was nearly 11:30. Are you expecting someone? I asked. The buzzer sounded again, followed by the scrape of a key in the downstairs door. Elaine walked into the apartment less than a minute later. She had changed out of her navy conference suit into cream slacks and a raincoat. In one hand, she carried the centerpiece sample I had made for her retirement dinner. In the other was a white bakery box. I brought cake, she announced. You have a key, I said. She glanced down at it as though surprised to find it there. A plain brass copy, no glass fob. For emergencies. What's the emergency? My son's engagement appears to be bleeding out on the kitchen floor. Daniel shut his eyes. Mom, what? If we're going to be dramatic, let's at least be accurate. She put the centerpiece on my table. White roses, green hellebore, clipped rosemary. I had spent 3 hours assembling it from flowers bought at wholesale, then declined to charge her because she was family. Elaine opened the cake box. Chocolate mousse, Daniel's favorite. She had not brought anything for me. Tell her what happened, Elaine said to him. I have. No, you've probably apologized for something you didn't do. That only encourages this. This? I asked. She took plates from my cupboard without asking where they were. She knew. Elaine knew where I kept everything. This suspicious streak, she said. It's unbecoming, Claire. Daniel has been working himself sick trying to build a future for the two of you. With Vanessa's room? Oh, for heaven's sake. Vanessa booked the room because she had meetings. Daniel used the parking. Overnight. So what? So the conference ended at 5:30. The conference sessions ended, Daniel said. The dinner didn't. Elaine cut 3 slices of cake. You see? Perfectly reasonable. Why were you afraid when he said Vanessa picked up the car? The knife stopped. Daniel looked at me. Elaine resumed cutting. I wasn't afraid. You looked afraid. Perhaps I was afraid you'd react exactly like this. What time did you let Vanessa into the building? I don't remember. This morning? I assume. You used your emergency key to let my fiancé's ex into my home, and you don't remember when? Our home, Daniel said again. Elaine slid a plate toward me. I think we should all eat something before Claire says a word she can't take back. I looked at the cake, then at the centerpiece, then at the plain brass key beside Elaine's purse. When I gave her the emergency copy, it had been attached to a green glass fob. Where's the keychain I made you? Elaine touched her throat. What? The green glass. Where is it? Oh, it broke months ago. She said it lightly, but Daniel looked at the key. I picked it up. Fresh grooves shone along one edge. Hardware stores left marks like that when they cut copies. Is this even the key I gave you? Elaine pushed back her chair. I will not sit here while you accuse me of stealing a key you willingly handed me. I asked whether you copied it. I needed a spare. You had a spare. I needed one for my key ring and one in a safe place. What safe place? She looked at Daniel. He looked at the floor. My phone was still open to the receipt photograph. I closed it and pulled up the building access app. The new entry system logged every time the downstairs door opened, but I rarely checked it unless a delivery went missing. Elaine had entered at 8:12 that morning. She had left at 9:06. The conference began at 8. Daniel had texted me at 7:41 saying he was already downtown. I opened the camera archive. Claire, Daniel said softly. I found 8:12 and pressed play. Elaine appeared in the foyer wearing the same navy suit she'd had on at the hotel. She unlocked the door and stepped aside. Vanessa entered carrying Daniel's leather overnight bag. Behind her came a man with a tape measure clipped to his belt and a portfolio tube under his arm. Elaine pointed him toward the glass doors of my studio. The man with the tape measure followed Elaine into my workroom. Vanessa stayed near the foyer, holding Daniel's bag against her hip. She glanced up at the camera once, then turned her face away. I dragged the progress bar forward. At 8:19, the three of them entered my glass event room. Elaine pointed toward the wall separating it from the office. The contractor measured the wall, then the width of the doorway. At 8:37, Vanessa carried Daniel's bag upstairs. She came back down without it. At 8:54, the contractor left. Elaine and Vanessa followed 12 minutes later. Daniel stood beside me close enough that his sleeve touched mine. That looks worse than it is, he said. I almost admired the sentence. It admitted nothing while asking me to doubt my own eyes. What is it then? Mom wanted an estimate for improving the event space. Elaine folded her arms. The acoustics at your last dinner were terrible. You told me they were elegant. The flowers were elegant. I could hear every fork hit every plate. The man measured my office wall for soundproofing. He measured the doorway. Sound travels through doorways, Claire. I paused the video on the contractor. His jacket had Bennett interiors embroidered across the back. Underneath was a phone number. Daniel reached for my phone. I pulled it against my chest. Don't, I said. I was going to zoom in. So was I. He let his hand fall. You're treating us like intruders. You entered my business before opening without telling me, with your ex and a contractor. My ex wasn't there for the contractor. That clears it right up. Elaine picked up her purse. The plain brass key remained on the table. I came here tonight to prevent a misunderstanding from destroying your engagement, she said. Clearly, I misjudged your willingness to be reasonable. You came here with cake. Food helps people talk. You brought Daniel's favorite. He's the one being attacked. Daniel said, Mom, stop helping. Her eyes flashed toward him. There was the frightened look again, sharper now. Not fear of me. Fear that he might stop following the script she had brought. I slid the brass key into my pocket. Elaine noticed. Excuse me. You no longer have permission to enter the building. You can't be serious. I am. I have belongings here. Make a list. I'll pack them. This is my son's home. It is his residence. It is not yours. Daniel planted both hands on the table. You don't get to make decisions like that when you're angry. I just did. Give her the key back. No. His face reddened. She's my mother, and she copied my key. For emergencies, Elaine said. What safe place holds the other copy? She pressed her lips together. Who has it? Don't be absurd. Who has it, Elaine? Daniel looked at her. Mom? She lifted one shoulder. It's in my desk. At your house? Where else would my desk be? Nobody answered. I walked to the front door and opened it. Elaine stayed where she was. She looked around my kitchen, the oak shelves I had sanded myself, the long table where she held court every Sunday, the refrigerator covered with her dinner plans, and seemed honestly wounded that a room she used so comfortably could reject her. You'll regret making me the enemy, she said. I thought you came to prevent a misunderstanding. For 1 second, her mouth nearly curved. Elaine appreciated a clean hit even when it landed on her. Then she passed me, smelling of rain and the perfume she wore too heavily after 9 at night. At the door, she turned to Daniel. Are you coming? No. The answer seemed to cost him. Elaine nodded once and walked downstairs. I locked the door behind her. Daniel slept on the couch, or at least he lay there. I heard him get up twice, once for water and once to check whether the kitchen junk drawer still held batteries. That was where I'd put my ring. I listened from the bedroom, trying to decide whether the drawer opening was random. The apartment had plenty of batteries elsewhere. He closed it softly, and a minute later, the floor creaked outside the bedroom door. He didn't knock. In the morning, I found my engagement ring on the kitchen table beside a cup of coffee. The lemon cookies were gone. The chocolate cake sat uncovered in the refrigerator, a crescent missing from one slice where someone had eaten around the edge. Daniel was showering. I put the ring back in the drawer. Downstairs, my studio smelled like rosemary and wet cardboard. The retirement centerpiece still sat upstairs, so the work table held only the remains. Stripped leaves, cut stems, loops of green floral tape stuck to the steel surface. I switched on the lights in the glass room. Pale morning came through the tall windows and met its reflection, making the space look twice as large as it was. Elaine loved that room. She called it our little glass house, usually while explaining to someone that she had discovered the property's potential. I had corrected her the first few times. Eventually, I stopped because each correction made me sound territorial, which was precisely how she wanted me to sound. A blue tape mark crossed the floor near my office wall. I crouched and peeled it up. There were 6 more, 2 along the baseboard, 1 at the event room entrance, 3 outlining a rectangle where my consultation table stood. Daniel came down at 8 in yesterday's shirt carrying 2 mugs. I made yours with oat milk. I was holding the pieces of tape. He looked at them. I didn't approve that. You knew about it. I knew Mom wanted to make improvements after the wedding. What improvements? He offered me the coffee. I didn't take it. She thought a dedicated office for my business made sense. You have a desk upstairs. A real office, Claire. That's my office. You barely fit in there. We could both have better space if we reconfigured. Both? He leaned against the work table. Mom wanted to manage events. You've complained for years about being stretched thin. I complained to my fiancé. I didn't invite a takeover committee. No one is taking over anything. Vanessa brought your overnight bag into my apartment while your mother measured my walls. He looked down at his coffee. You said you weren't in her room. I wasn't. Then why did she have your bag? She picked it up yesterday. From where? My gym. Your gym is closed on Mondays. His head came up. It was a small thing, knowing his gym schedule. Ordinary intimacy becoming evidence. He set both mugs down. We kissed. The room seemed to sharpen around us. When? Last night. At the conference? After dinner. In her room? In the elevator. Did the elevator flatten her hair? That's cruel. Is it inaccurate? He shoved his hands into his pockets. I stopped it. Which part? Everything. I told her I'm marrying you. Before or after you asked my mother to let her into my building? I didn't ask Mom to bring in the contractor. That wasn't my question. He paced toward the glass doors. His reflection moved beside him, gray and tired. Vanessa and I have history, he said. Seeing her stirred things up. I handled it badly. You booked a room. She booked a room. You parked your car under it. I knew I'd been drinking. Leaving the car was responsible. You came home at 10 this morning? I came home before you. That was technically true. He had left his things behind to make it look true, and I hated how quickly my mind supplied the accusation. Where were you between dinner and the conference this morning? He looked through the glass at the empty sidewalk. I waited. Finally, he said, I need you to decide whether you want the truth or whether you want to punish me. I thought those could happen on the same day. He gave a humorless breath that might have been a laugh. I sat in the hotel lounge until late. Vanessa went upstairs. I slept a few hours in a conference hospitality suite. Which one? I don't know the room number. Who else was there? People. Names? I wasn't taking attendance. I picked up his untouched mug and poured both coffees into the workroom sink. Change your business address. He blinked. What? Voss Strategy is registered here. Your packages come here. Your client meetings happen in my glass room. You have 30 days to move it. You do my billing. Not anymore. This is insane. Your dental group invoice is due Friday. The template is in the folder marked Voss. You'll need to send it. You're going to sabotage my business over one kiss? I'm going to stop running your business. We're partners. No, I'm your unpaid administrator. His jaw tightened. Fine. He picked up the mugs, rinsed them harder than necessary, and put them on the drying rack. You'll calm down, he said. It sounded less like hope than a deadline. After he went upstairs, I called Bennett Interiors. The man who answered had a cheerful voice and apologized 3 times for putting me on hold. When he came back, he identified himself as Luis Bennett. I'm calling about an estimate at Mercer Floral, I said. Oh, sure. Mrs. Voss's project. There is no Mrs. Voss. A pause. Elaine Voss? I'm Claire Mercer. I own the building and the business. His cheerfulness disappeared. I was told you were all partners. What work were you asked to estimate? Paper shifted near the phone. Removal of the partition between the current office and event room. New glass partition farther back. 2 offices along the east wall. Storage conversion to a catering prep area. My flower cooler is on the east wall. Yes, ma'am, the plan had that, relocating to the basement. The basement floods. I didn't know that. Who provided the plan? Daniel Voss emailed a sketch. Ms. Voss scheduled the walk-through. My knees felt unreliable, so I sat on a bucket of unopened carnations. When was the work supposed to start? After your wedding, the Monday following, if permits lined up. They had chosen the week I would be away. Luis kept talking, explaining that he had not opened walls, that blue tape was only for measurements, that he needed an owner's signature before scheduling anything. His embarrassment sounded genuine. Email me everything you received, I said. I can do that. And make a note that neither Daniel nor Elaine has authority to approve work here. Absolutely. The estimate arrived 12 minutes later. The subject line read, Mercer Voss Collaborative Conversion. Attached was Daniel's sketch, neat and labeled. My consultation office had become Elaine Events. The new corner office was Daniel Strategy. Claire appeared nowhere. I printed the estimate and folded it into my bag. At 10, my part-time studio assistant Mara arrived carrying 2 coffees and complaining that the parking meter had eaten her quarter. You look like you've been awake since the invention of flowers, she said. I may need you to handle Friday's consult alone. She stopped taking off her coat. What happened? I told her Daniel and I were having problems. I did not mention Vanessa, the hotel, or the camera footage. Saying those things aloud would turn them into facts other people could keep. Mara looked through the glass toward the ceiling, as if Daniel might be standing directly above us. Do you want me to ask questions or lift heavy things? Today? Heavy things? Perfect. Questions hurt my back. We spent the morning breaking down a shipment of ceramic bowls for an anniversary dinner. Daniel's dental group invoice sat untouched in its folder. At noon, Elaine called the studio line. I let it ring twice before answering. "I've spoken to Daniel," she said. "I assumed you would. He's devastated. He has a funny way of showing it. Not everyone performs pain for an audience." I looked at Mara, who was across the room removing price stickers and pretending not to listen. "What do you need, Elaine?" "We have to finalize the retirement dinner menu. The chef needs a head count. The chef is holding the date. Nothing is finalized. It's 3 weeks away. I'll send you a contract this afternoon." "A contract?" "At the standard event rate." Silence. Then she laughed. "I'm family. You were receiving the family rate." "Receiving?" "The glass room, flowers, labor, rentals, and coordination were at cost. That arrangement is over." "You're canceling my retirement dinner?" "No, I'm charging for it." "How much?" "I'll have the exact number this afternoon." "Give me a guess." "Between $6,500 and $7,000. She inhaled sharply. I had been charging her $1,800, barely enough to cover flowers, food, and Mara's hours. "You vindictive little—" She stopped herself. "My business cannot subsidize your party while you're planning to remove my office from it." "That room would have been better for everyone." "You mean the office labeled with your name? Daniel wanted a proper office. I offered to help with events. You're forever saying you can't do everything alone. I don't remember asking you to take my desk." "You're choosing the ugliest possible interpretation." "No, I'm finally charging market rate for it." I hung up before she could answer. Mara slid a clean ceramic bowl toward me. "Should I still not ask questions?" "Please don't." "Great, because I have one, and it's mostly about whether I should hide the good scissors." By 4, I had changed the studio alarm code, removed Daniel's login from the client management system, and emailed Elaine a contract for $6,840 with a 48-hour deposit deadline. At 4:15, my wholesale flower order for Friday disappeared from the supplier portal. I called our representative, Dean, who had handled my account since I opened the studio. He sounded uncomfortable. "I just need to pause this one," he said. "Why?" "There's some concern about whether the event is still going forward." "Who told you it wasn't?" He exhaled. "Elaine Voss called. She said you were having some kind of breakdown and canceling family commitments. She also said Daniel is a partner in the business and disputes the order." I looked through the glass wall at the blue tape residue I hadn't managed to remove. "Daniel isn't my partner." "That's not what he told me. I emailed Dean the business registration, the building deed, and 3 years of invoices bearing only my name. He still wouldn't release the order." "I'm not saying Elaine's right," he said. "I'm saying I don't want my truck in the middle of a domestic dispute. The flowers are for a paying client." "I understand. They'll be decorating a bare room if you hold them." "I understand that too." Understanding, in Dean's case, meant I was on my own. Mara drove with me to a warehouse outside the city where we bought what we could at nearly double my contracted price. They had the white ranunculus and peach roses the client wanted, but not enough of either. We added cream lisianthus, then spent the drive back inventing reasons the substitution was artistically necessary. "It creates movement," Mara said. "It creates an invoice I can't pass on. Movement is expensive." The client accepted the change, but my profit on the dinner vanished. At 6, I found a voicemail from Dean saying he hoped there were no hard feelings. I deleted it. Daniel was cooking when I went upstairs. Garlic and butter filled the apartment. He had put music on low and opened a bottle of the red wine we usually save for Fridays. My engagement ring sat beside my plate. "Chicken piccata," he said. "You haven't eaten." "How did Dean get the idea you're my business partner?" He turned down the burner. "I've brought clients into your space." That wasn't my question. I told him we work together. "You told him you dispute my flower order." "Mom called him. He called me to confirm." "And you did." "I said major purchases should wait until we resolve what's happening. It was $600 of flowers for a booked dinner." "I didn't know that." "You could have asked." "You'd stopped answering me." "I was in a flower warehouse because you froze my order." He set the spoon down. Can we sit? No. Claire, I am trying. You're cooking while interfering with my business. You ended my access without warning. I stopped doing unpaid work for you. You changed the alarm code to the studio. My office is in the studio. Your desk is in my apartment. He looked toward the hallway where his standing desk occupied the sunny corner I had once used for sketching arrangements. That's not what we planned, he said. What did we plan? To build something together. Did we plan to put your mother in my office? We talked about expansion. We talked about me hiring another designer. You said you wanted more time away from work. I wanted 2 uninterrupted days in Maine. Exactly. You wanted balance. Mom has event experience. I have growth experience. Elaine planned 3 hospital fundraisers 20 years ago, and your growth experience currently includes me sending your invoices. That is incredibly dismissive. So is erasing my name from a drawing of my own business. He stared at me. The chicken hissed in the pan. Butter browned around the edges. I made the sketch, he said. Mom added the labels. The admission was so quiet I nearly missed it. You designed it. I sketched an option. You measured my office? I know the dimensions. Why schedule construction during our honeymoon? It was supposed to be a surprise. I laughed once. I couldn't help it. Daniel turned off the burner. Not like that. How else could it possibly be? You'd come home to a better space, a business that didn't depend on you being there every hour. It would depend on you and Elaine. It would belong to both of us. It already belongs to me. His expression closed. There were sentences Daniel considered character flaws. Mine, yours, paid, owed. He liked together, because together made accounting feel vulgar. He picked up my ring and held it between his thumb and forefinger. Did you ever intend for this to mean partnership? Yes. Then why is every conversation suddenly about what belongs to you? Because you were making plans for it with 2 other women. He set the ring down. Vanessa had nothing to do with the renovation. She walked through it. She's a branding consultant. Mom asked her opinion. You said she was hiring you. She might. Does she know that? His silence answered. I took the ring and returned it to the junk drawer. The next morning, an email from Daniel arrived with the subject line Path Forward. It contained 3 proposed counseling appointments and a spreadsheet titled Shared Contributions. He had listed every rent payment he'd made, the amount he estimated his advice had increased my revenue, and 800 hours of brand strategy and operational guidance. At the bottom, he valued his contribution to Mercer Floral at $186,000. He had included photographs of my annual statements. The statements were kept in the locked drawer of my studio office. I checked the camera archive. At 2:13 the previous afternoon, before I changed the alarm code, Daniel had entered the studio. He went into my office carrying his phone. 7 minutes later, he came out. He had left the apartment while I slept, gone downstairs, and photographed my records. Then he cooked me dinner and placed my ring beside the plate. I forwarded the email to the attorney who had handled the building purchase. She called that afternoon and refused to give me the clean answer I wanted. He lives there, and he contributed to household expenses, she said. That gives him tenancy rights, not automatic ownership. His business claim looks weak, but weak claims still consume time. Can I make him leave? You can give proper notice. You cannot change the apartment lock while he resides there. What about the studio? Notify him in writing that his permission to use the commercial space has ended. Document everything. Don't touch his belongings. It was practical advice which felt almost insulting when I wanted a sentence strong enough to make the last 3 days unhappen. I sent Daniel written notice that afternoon. 30 days to change his business address. 30 days to leave the apartment. No access to the studio without my written permission. He read it upstairs while I stood at the work table below him. A minute later, something struck the floor hard enough to rattle the glass doors. He didn't come downstairs. Elaine's deposit deadline passed at 5 without payment. At 5:03, she emailed that she rejected my retaliatory pricing and expected the original family arrangement to be honored. I replied with one sentence. The date remains available at the contracted rate until tomorrow at noon. At 11 the next morning, the chef called to ask where he should send his final menu. Elaine hasn't booked the event, I said. She gave me a guest count of 64. She hasn't paid for the room. She said it's a family-owned venue. I closed my eyes. It isn't. She also said Daniel would handle payment after the dinner. Daniel has no authority to do that. The chef went quiet. Should I order food? No. At noon, the reservation expired. At 12:10, Elaine sent me a screenshot of her invitation. Our little glass house was printed across the top in green script. Beneath it were the studio address, the date, and a watercolor rendering of my glass doors. 64 invitations had already gone out. Her message read, "You can still choose not to embarrass this family." I called her. "Move the dinner." "I will not." "You don't have a reservation." "We had an agreement. We had a favor." "You're punishing dozens of people who have done nothing to you. They can attend wherever you book." 3 weeks before the date? 2 weeks and 5 days. "You find this amusing?" "No, I find it scheduled." She breathed slowly into the phone. "I'm going to give you one opportunity to fix this," she said. "Honor the dinner at the original amount, restore Daniel's access, and attend counseling before you destroy your marriage over a hotel receipt." It was a valet ticket. "What?" "The thing I'm destroying my marriage over." "You keep calling it a receipt because a receipt sounds petty. It was Daniel's valet ticket attached to Vanessa's room." "You have no idea what happened." "You do." "I know my son. You knew what time he entered my building." She ended the call. An hour later, I sent Vanessa a message through the only number I had for her, buried in an old group thread from Elaine's birthday. I attached the photograph of the valet ticket and folio. "I need to know whether Daniel told you our engagement was over." Her reply arrived that evening. "Talk to Daniel." I wrote back. "He says you pursued him, kissed him in the elevator, and attached his car to your room without him staying there." The typing indicator appeared, vanished, then appeared again. She did not respond. Daniel spent that week alternating between tenderness and paperwork. He brought me lunch without coming into the studio. He left the counseling appointments on the refrigerator. Through his door, I heard him teaching himself the invoicing software and swearing at it with genuine creativity. On Thursday, he came downstairs and stopped outside the newly coated glass doors. I opened them, but stood in the gap. "I sent the dental invoice," he said. "Congratulations. It took 4 hours. It takes me 12 minutes. I know that now." He looked exhausted. For a moment, the exhaustion made him familiar again. "I'm sorry," he said. "For which thing?" "All of it." "That's not an answer." "I don't know how to apologize while you're building a case. You built the spreadsheet because you served me notice. You photographed my statements before I served you notice." He looked away. "I panicked," he said. "So did I. I called a flower wholesaler." His mouth twitched, but I didn't smile. "Come to counseling once," he said. "If you still want me out afterward, I'll cooperate." "Did you sleep in Vanessa's room?" His face settled into the careful expression he used when a client asked about results. "No." I closed the glass door. Friday's dinner went beautifully from the guest's side. Mara and I worked until after midnight, then sat on the studio floor eating leftover rolls beside buckets of dying flowers. My phone buzzed at 12:26. Vanessa had sent 14 screenshots. The first was from Elaine. "I booked the room under your name. Conference rate. He can park through valet so Claire won't see the garage charge." The next was from Daniel. "Told her the closing session may run late. If she comes downtown, use the east elevator." Another read, "Kiss Claire when you see her. If you act cold, she'll know." At the bottom of the last screenshot, Vanessa had written, "He told me you were postponing the wedding until you agreed on a property settlement. He said you kept him in that apartment because you needed his rent." I stared at the screen until Mara touched my shoulder. Do you need me to ask a question now? I handed her the phone. She read in silence, then gave it back. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, another message appeared. Vanessa. Elaine invited me to the retirement walkthrough Sunday. She says Daniel needs both of us there to make you reasonable. I looked through the glass doors at the green script still faintly visible on the invitation lying across my desk. I typed, "Come. Bring the hotel bill." Vanessa reacted to my message with a single check mark. I spent Saturday preparing for a party that did not exist. Mara printed the expired contract, the standard rate sheet, and the chef's cancellation email. I printed the Bennett estimate, the camera stills, and the messages Vanessa had sent. The valet photograph went on top. You know she's going to say this is an ambush, Mara said. She invited Vanessa. She'll say you made it an ambush by bringing documents. She brought a contractor. Fair. At 6, a locksmith replaced the cylinder on the studio's exterior door. Daniel had received written notice that his access was over, but the copies Elaine made could be anywhere. I kept the apartment lock unchanged. Every precaution had to fit inside the narrow space between protecting myself and giving Daniel something useful to call cruelty. Sunday morning, I found a garment bag hanging from the upstairs coat hook. Daniel stood in the kitchen wearing the blue suit we had chosen for our engagement photographs. "What's that?" I asked. "Your dress for Mom's dinner?" "The dinner isn't today. The walkthrough is. She thought seeing everything set up might help you remember what we planned." "You brought down my clothes?" "I had your dress cleaned." He said it tenderly. That was the worst part. "I'm wearing this. I had on black pants, a white shirt, and the flat shoes I used for 12-hour installations." He looked at me for a long moment. "Vanessa sent you something, didn't she?" "What makes you think that?" She stopped answering me. The answer held more injury than anything he had said about losing me. "You're still calling her?" "We have business to resolve." "Does she know what business?" His mouth tightened. At 2, Elaine tried her spare key in the studio lock. I watched through the glass as she pushed, withdrew it, turned it over, and tried again. Daniel stood beside her with the garment bag. Mara was arranging contract copies at the consultation table. Vanessa waited a few feet back, holding a manila envelope. I unlocked the door. "You changed the lock," Elaine said. "Yes. You knew we were coming. That's why I'm here to let you in." She entered with her chin high. "I see you chose not to dress." Daniel hung the garment bag on the coat rack. Vanessa looked pale under the glass-room light. She wore gray trousers and a dark sweater. Nothing like the woman from the hotel except for the earrings. This time, both were fastened. Elaine saw the envelope in her hand. "What is that?" "The hotel bill." Daniel shut the door behind him. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "you don't have to do this." She looked at him. "That's what you texted me at 1 this morning." Elaine turned to me. "You contacted her?" "I answered Claire's question," Vanessa said. "This is a family matter." I was family enough to measure the office? Elaine's nostrils flared. She glanced at Mara. "Why is your employee here?" "I'm coordinating the venue," Mara said. "There is no venue," I told Elaine, "unless you sign the contract and pay the deposit." She placed her purse on the consultation table. I brought a check for $1,800. That was the cost of materials under the family arrangement, which we had already agreed upon. A favor can end. Not after invitations go out. You printed those before paying for anything. Because I trusted you. The word landed with such confidence that even Vanessa looked at her. Mara pushed the standard contract across the table. "The current total is $68.40. Half is due to reserve the date. The remaining balance is due 72 hours before the event." Elaine did not look at her. "Daniel will pay the difference." Daniel shifted. "Mom, you said we would work it out." "I said Claire would calm down." I almost smiled at the honesty of it. Elaine turned on him. Then make her understand. With what money? I asked. His eyes came to mine. 2 days earlier, I had stopped transferring money into the household account and begun paying my share of the utilities directly. What remained in the account belonged to Daniel. It was enough for groceries and perhaps one counseling appointment, not a 64-person dinner. This isn't about money, he said. It becomes about money when the free money stops. I contributed to this place. I opened the folder and placed his shared contribution spreadsheet on the table. You estimated your advice at $232 an hour. That's an industry rate. You gave some of it while eating cereal in your underwear. Mara looked down quickly. Daniel's face darkened. You're enjoying this? No, I'm being specific. I laid the photograph of the receipts beside the spreadsheet. The orange ticket and Vanessa's folio showed the same number. Elaine exhaled through her nose. We've discussed the parking. No, I said. You explained macadamia nuts. Vanessa removed the original folio from her envelope. The paper had been refolded so often, the creases were soft. Daniel stayed in my room, she said. He stared at her. For how long? I asked. Until a little after 6 in the morning. Did he sleep in the hospitality suite? No. Daniel's voice dropped. You told me nothing happened. I told you I wouldn't describe what happened. Elaine stepped between them. This is tasteless. Vanessa laughed under her breath. You booked the room. I found you a conference rate. You told me which elevator to use. To avoid an unnecessary confrontation, you told him to kiss Claire. Elaine looked at me, and I saw her decide that denial had become less useful than justification. My son was confused, she said. Vanessa represented a professional opportunity, and yes, there were feelings. I encouraged him to resolve those feelings before the wedding. In her room, I encouraged honesty. Did you think I was getting any? You don't make honesty easy. The room went silent. Elaine continued, because stopping would have required hearing herself. You take everything as a challenge to your independence. Daniel couldn't suggest a chair without being reminded whose floor it sat on. He was going to marry you and remain a guest in his own home. It isn't his home if he needs to remove my office to feel like he belongs. That is exactly what I mean. There's no room for him unless you control the terms. Daniel said, Mom, enough. No. She wants the truth? Fine. You were building a marriage with someone who kept the deed in one hand and the keys in the other. I gave both of you keys. Keys you could take away. Yes, I said. That's what permission means. Elaine's expression flickered. I placed the camera still beside the hotel photograph, Elaine holding my door, Vanessa carrying Daniel's overnight bag, Louise Bennett behind them with the tape measure. Then I put down Daniel's sketch, with his corner office and Elaine's event office labeled in black ink. This was your solution, I said. Not buying a desk, not leasing an office, not paying your share regularly. You waited until after the wedding, when the invitations and deposits and vows would make it harder for me to say no. Daniel leaned over the table. I was trying to build something permanent. On top of something I already built. For us. Where was I in the plan? He tapped the glass event room on the sketch. Everywhere. This entire place is you. It was almost beautiful. Daniel could make erasure sound like devotion. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. I looked at her. What did he tell you? That the wedding was being postponed until you agreed to a property settlement. That you two hadn't been a real couple in months. That was a lie, Daniel said. You told me she kept you here because she needed your rent. I was upset. You told Claire I pursued you. I was trying to save my relationship. Vanessa nodded slowly. That sentence seems to cover a lot for you. Elaine touched her arm. You're not innocent here. No, Vanessa said. I'm not. She didn't look at me when she said it, and I was grateful. An apology would have demanded an answer I didn't have. I knew he was engaged, she continued. I believed what I wanted because it made what I was doing easier, but I didn't know I was part of a property negotiation. You weren't, Daniel said. Then stop calling me a professional opportunity. She set the hotel bill on the table and walked to the door. Elaine followed her 2 steps. Where are you going? Away from this. You agreed to help with the dinner branding. I also agreed to hire Daniel. I'm not doing that either. Daniel's face changed. Vanessa. She opened the door. I hope the invoice only takes you 4 hours, she said, and left. Mara became fascinated with the rate sheet. Elaine looked at Daniel. Fix this. He stared at the closed door. I slid Elaine's check back toward her. The dinner can still happen here. Same date, same flowers, same menu. Pay the deposit today. You know I can't pay that. Then move it. 64 people think they're coming here. They'll read a new message. Her shoulders lowered. For the first time since I had known her, Elaine looked her age. Not fragile, just tired from holding her version of Daniel upright. I was trying to protect my son, she said. From what? Being diminished. I looked at Daniel in his blue suit standing inside the business he had tried to claim while someone else prepared his invoices. You taught him that being supported and being diminished were the same thing. Daniel turned on me. Don't reduce my life to a clever sentence. You reduced mine to square footage. He pulled my engagement ring from his pocket. I hadn't checked the junk drawer that morning. He placed it between the receipts. You kept moving it around like you wanted me to beg. I moved it once. You served me notice before trying counseling. You froze me out of the business. You embarrassed my mother. You brought Vanessa here to punish me. Your mother brought Vanessa here. She thought we could resolve things by making me reasonable. His eyes filled. That surprised me enough that my anger loosened for a second. I love you, he said. I made a horrible mistake, but I love you. Doesn't 4 years earn me the chance to repair it? 4 years, oil changes, Friday wine, his hand on my back in crowded rooms, the night of the broken refrigerator, the green glass tapping against the door when he came home. I wanted those things to add up to a different man. I would have tried to survive the hotel, I said. I don't know if I could have forgiven it, but I would have tried to understand it. He swallowed. But you gave them my home to make your lie work. Then you photographed my records and priced your advice because I stopped cooperating. You didn't protect me once. You protected your access. That's not fair. No, it's accurate. He looked down at the ring. I need loyalty too, he said. Loyalty was the one thing you could have contributed without owning anything. I pushed the ring toward him. Elaine took her check. She left the copied key beside it. The retirement dinner moved to a private room in an Italian restaurant. The guest list shrank to 22. Elaine told people there had been a venue conflict, which was close enough to the truth that I let it stand. Dean never restored my usual terms. Mara and I opened an account with the warehouse instead. It cost more for 3 months, and I lost 1 corporate dinner while rebuilding the supply schedule. The chef kept working with me after I sent him a copy of the studio's booking policy. So did every other vendor. Daniel signed a move-out agreement after 2 meetings with attorneys and 1 terrible afternoon at my kitchen table. He withdrew his business claim. I agreed not to pursue payment for the administrative work I had done. Neither of us felt victorious. On his final day, Elaine carried boxes through the downstairs foyer while Daniel dismantled his standing desk. He handed me his building key. The green glass fob rested in his palm. I kept waiting for you to stop me, he said. I know. He closed my fingers around the key. Then he left. Months later, I hosted a paid dinner in the glass room. The guests lingered over coffee until the windows turned black and reflected the candles back at us. After Mara went home, I washed the last 2 glasses, turned off the workroom lights, and locked the green door. In the shallow bowl beside it lay 1 key with a green glass fob. I picked it up, heard the small bright sound against the glass, and went upstairs alone.